Our next presenter is Tom Revy. And now Tom is Black Earth Minerals and Black Earth are in graphite in Madagascar. Tom comes to us with more than 30 years of experience in the industry, both at project development and also within the industry more broadly in Australia. His service includes Minproc, Wally Parsons, Ferrum Crescent, and Mr. Revy is now Managing Director of Black Earth Minerals, overseeing its development and listing on the ASX. He was formerly Chairman of Empire Resources and the rural and remote mentoring charity True Blue Dreaming. Tom.
Thanks very much, Gary. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Black Earth since day one has approached its Madagascan Mineri graphite project as financial project developers, not as technocrats seeking the world's largest resource or chasing technical excellence, but rather a project that will reward investors in a reasonable time frame by focusing on getting the asset into cash flow as soon as practically and responsibly possible. Our structure is tight with only 113 million fully paid shares issued currently. The board itself is small, but is made up of people with experience in developing projects, specifically in Africa. The board has the necessary technical, corporate and financial skills for delivery of the Mineri graphite project. The rest of the team has significant technical and commercial experience in dealing with Africa, and specifically with Madagascan experience, as well as global graphite marketing networks and experience. Our primary focus at this stage is the Mineri graphite project located here in the south of Madagascar, for which we are currently in the feasibility stage. We also have another graphite asset 50 kilometres north of Mineri, and that's our Ianapera project, which is at exploration stage. Our track record, I believe, is second to none. From our first drill hole to starting feasibility has only taken us 14 months. For many others in our space, it's taken many years. The valuable and detailed information we have obtained on the project is testament to the quality of the personnel we have used on the project to date and the cooperation we have encountered in country. Right now, and based on precedent only, our activities, particularly in the area of offtakes discussions, have the potential to be highly leveraging for the company, and once again we have contracted the services of someone who has around 20 years of global graphite marketing experience. We're engaging with only top-tier battery, refractory and expandable related companies, direct, and while early, we're encouraged by our discussions and feedback to date on the results we've achieved. This is an important page when looking at any prospective project around the world, something I've worked on, albeit in much greater detail, over the last 20 years in project analyses and development. The project development part, if you think about it, is largely governed by the enthusiasm of board and senior management of a company up until the completion of feasibility. However, at feasibility, a number of third parties enter the arena and ultimately decide the destiny of a project. I'm talking government officials, regulators, communities, banks, and in some cases the off-takers. This is why so many of projects have ended up stalling in feasibility mode for so long. Value adding, optimising, investigating alternative process routes, reviewing expansion opportunities, etc. This is why we call this slide the 7 factors of mining success. It's what these third parties look at, and it's what primarily differentiates us from many of our peers, the ability to tick every box. The project financials, 10 years, based on indicated resources alone, contained within a very large exploration target. A 42% IRR and a low startup capital with a quick payback again gives the board enormous confidence that this is a very real project. Output of 30,000 tonnes is not only manageable, but makes us a material global producer of graphite with plans to double that using operating cash flow while not diluting shareholders. As the bottom of the slide suggests, a 1% increase in fee grade results in a significant increase in IRR and NPV, which we believe is very much achievable given the graphite results we returned 200 metres to the northwest of our current indicated resource. And this will be the focus of further drilling next year. Our key graphite markets. To give you a better understanding of where Black Earth is headed, I'm just going to go over a few markets and explain why we're excited. A lot's been said in the media about batteries, energy storage and electric vehicles, and that's a very large and growing market, as we're all aware. Expandables is probably a bit less known, but has the most potential for growth and represents the top-end value for graphite. We're talking fire retardants, graphite foils as heat sinks, etc. And finally, the refractories area. Crucibles, furnace lining, furniture, etc., predominantly linked to the steel and general metal smelting area. Now, before I go to the next slide, it's worth noting that the global production of natural graphite sits around plus or minus 1.3 million tonnes per annum, and please keep that number in mind as we go along. And not all of that graphite is suitable for every use, batteries and expandables especially. Graphite mine product varies significantly from one project to the next. And as I explained to someone earlier today, it's a bit like saying you're a base metal producer, producing copper, lead, zinc, etc., and the multitude and the variance between those commodities and the uses that can be applied is applicable to graphite too in terms of the products that you produce. Our product, well, the product itself is coarse. The Chinese confirmed this via test work undertaken by BEM'S in Beijing, which confirmed our detailed findings contained in our scoping study and comprehensive test work undertaken here in Perth by ALS. According to UK-based Roskill, Madagascar is known for production of very large size flake graphite, a size fraction for which China has relatively limited resources and which has specialist use in the growing expanded graphite sector. This is the sort of statement that makes us excited, and we've seen a very positive reaction from the Chinese on our product results to date. So let's reflect on the strategic value and supply of graphite. Around 68% of the world's natural graphite, predominantly fine, is produced in China, and 100% of spherical graphite for anodes is manufactured, you guessed it, in China. And I know that this refers to graphite anode, which includes synthetic graphite, but if you account for natural graphite losses and percentage composition of your average anode, then the number works out roughly the same. So we're talking about a significant need for increased supply to feed this hungry beast, the battery beast. And this is one of the major opportunities we see for Black Earth. The other thing about batteries is the price it represents to the manufacturing costs of lithium-ion batteries. The anode costs less than 10% of the battery, and the natural graphite is probably around 1/10 of that as a raw material. So substitution based on cost is very unlikely. Even the car manufacturers who've committed huge money and as well as key petroleum companies are positioning themselves to take advantage of this massive step change we're currently experiencing globally. Shell and BP now have the majority control of public electric vehicle charging. How? Well, alongside every service station is an electricity power line. So the installation and transition to supply electric charging stations is effortless, requiring negligible infrastructure. Does our material qualify? The results released to date certainly speak for themselves. Right now, we're in the final stages of a comprehensive 6-month battery test program being undertaken in Germany as part of our pathway to offtake qualification. We've put out 2 key announcements in recent weeks on this. The first relates to Mineri Graphite meeting spherical graphite and end user specifications. As part of offtake discussions, it's vitally important to work with potential buyers throughout the product testing process. We have done this since day one. They provided their specifications to us, we met them, and they've given us the thumbs up. Secondly, yesterday we released our results on purification, 99.97%, and this exceeds market minimum requirements and places us in the attractive category. As a result, spherical graphite and anode producers have requested samples immediately for in-house testing ahead of further and more detailed offtake discussions. Expandable graphite. In June, we published our first pass expandability test results, and yes, we passed with flying colours. We exceeded the industry average significantly, with, according to the German test lab, upside on those results. The other chemical and physical parameters in this market and beyond were all big ticks, and as a result, the laboratory stated we could not find any restriction which would limit the application of this kind of graphite flake, and that's a great position for us to be in. I won't go through the technical aspects, I'll leave you to read those later, but in regards to the market, I'd like to highlight some key points. When we talk about expandable graphite, we're generally talking about the plus 180 micron material that is capable, I'll stress that is capable of producing an expanded product using acid and heat. Price for this material varies from about $1,000 US to $2,500 plus per tonne, depending on flake size and other parameters, so it's a big deal for us. The price premium for this product, especially in the plus 300 micron category, has grown disproportionately higher to the other flake sizes in recent years, which brings us to the third point, and that's demand. Currently the market is small for no other reason that supply is small, around 50 to 60,000 tonne per annum. The world needs it mainly as a fire retardant in apartment cladding. Remember the London apartment fire, the UAE apartment fires and others in the US and China. Market estimates suggest that in the medium term, so we're talking mid-2020s, this could result in demand for up to 2 million tonne of expandable graphite, predominantly from first world countries. And even if you halve that number through conservatism, that is a massive jump in demand. Geopolitics is another huge positive differentiator for us. Madagascan graphite is well accepted quality material globally. China, India and the US continue to increase their imports of natural graphite to meet rising domestic demand from Madagascar. Madagascan exports of flake graphite to China increased by more than 12% per month over the last 18 months and are still rising. Exports to India have grown by 4% per month over a similar period of time. The US has significantly increased the importation of graphite from Madagascar, which now sits as its 5th largest supplier of natural graphite. Madagascar itself is a veritable smorgasbord of minerals opportunities, as our last speaker had mentioned. Testament to this is the broad range of international resource companies, both in minerals and oil and gas. And why? Apart from the country's prospectivity, Madagascar understands the value of resource projects with an attractive fiscal regime and a clear mandate allowing 100% foreign ownership. No free carry here. What also works in our favour is that most of the country's major trading partners are all considering or in the process of building battery megafactories. So timing is everything. China, as I mentioned, is now a net importer of graphite, and a large portion of the exports also go to India. Regular sales continue to other Asian countries. Europe and also the US has been buying Madagascan graphite for over 100 years. The annual mining journal Mining Investment Risk Survey out of the UK rates Madagascar ahead of 90% of world production sources. Remember back to the outlook for demand and think about the importance of this alone. Given that aid continues to pour into Madagascar from groups such as the World Bank and the EU, our Mineri Graphite project is deemed to be an important project development, particularly in the poorest part of the country, being the south, by all in-country stakeholders. So in terms of the technical value of the Mineri project, our understanding of geology, mineralogy and metallurgy is much higher than for most other commodities and is necessary for graphite. This not only allows us to prepare an optimised mine schedule on a geometallurgical basis, but it is deemed to be an important component in our discussions with off-takers on the basis of providing consistent product for years to come. In effect, we have reverse engineered Mineri based on off-take demand. Simple mining and process. Average life of mine strip ratio of 0.9 to 1 and a simple, well-proven set of unit processes to produce high-quality, high-value products. We plan on initially processing only 500,000 tonne per annum from a 40-year granted mining lease and within a project area that contains some 260 to 380 million tonnes of exploration target material, all for an initial startup capital costs of about $41 million US. And then there's the infrastructure. Port, road and water are all pretty well in place. Power at this stage will come via a small diesel-powered 4 megawatt installed power plant. And finally, project news flow. We've accomplished a lot since our first drill hole in only March last year. Can we continue our momentum? The board certainly believes so, and our history certainly supports this. The company has, over the past 18 months, positioned itself perfectly with the delivery of attractive, robust technical and financial results in order to take advantage of what is shaping up to be a very hungry future market. Our aim is to complete our feasibility program over the next 12 months, complete offtake arrangements and have them in place directly with quality buyers. Thereafter, we intend commencing construction in late 2020 with a view of starting commissioning in late 2021, with plenty of news for shareholders and prospective investors along the way. And with that final gratuitous plug, I thank you again for your attention to what we believe is an exciting future ahead for Black Earth Minerals. Thank you.